Hi, Pocket. In this video, I tell the tale of Jettison, my palico. Weekly bounty time. This week, it's 3 in Wyveria, 5 construct monsters, and 3 tempered. Construct just means any of the guardians, so Shia included, and those only spawn in Wyveria anyways. Easy peasy. I pretty easily found a tempered guardian Fulgur Anjanath, but there is actually an event quest going on right now, King of a Faraway Sky, which provides an unlimited supply of 6-star tempered Garathalos, which makes it perfect for clearing these bounties. 5 times and you're all finished. Now to the story. My palico's name is Jettison, but long before she was my palico, she was a real cat. The kind that walks and meows and doesn't throw barrel bombs at monsters. I was still in the conclusive months of my high school years, sitting in class and staring out the window. It was incidentally around the same time that I met Dr. Hinton. 3-hour-long classes were dreadful, and I often ran out of mana to channel my attention around the 45-minute mark. When I wasn't learning about things like the anatomical reactions to severe temperatures, the role the vagus nerve can play in truly helping a person chill out, I would practice my crosshair tracking on the cars that passed on the nearby highway, wishing I was in one, traveling 70-something miles an hour away towards something no doubt more exciting than what was in front of me. Between one class and the next, I had an hour for lunch, and I would spend it running a nearby trail. I'd see how far I could get in 30 minutes, and force myself to rush back. It wasn't the most exciting thing, but after 3 hours in class, mindlessly running with Daoko songs blasting into my ears was all I had an interest in doing. This was my daily cycle, absent-mindedly attending class, and then running away from it all until my leash tugged and I sprinted back. It wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary for my growth, so I endured it, and I'm thankful for that. Even if I didn't find a functional use for most of the things I learned, simply knowing things can be great fun. After all, last winter, I got quite good at tracking my descent from frost nip to 2nd-degree frostbite. One day, as I was absent-mindedly staring out the window of class, unfocusing to see the streets and buildings, and refocusing to see my own reflection, I unfocused to find a peculiar thing. A gremlin-looking creature, scraggly and furry. It was sitting in the sun outside a building, near a picnic table, not far from the highway. I pressed down my right analog stick, locking my gaze to this entity, and trying to check the color of its health bar, maybe its level or name, before a garbage truck pulled up nearby. The heavy racket of it lifting the dumpster was enough to disturb the class, but by the time everyone else looked, the gremlin had vanished. It had skittered beneath a nearby shed, like a soot sprite from Spirited Away. I was glad to have locked on, as it had vanished quickly. I might have lost it otherwise. That day, when I went out for lunch, I sat down by the picnic table and stared at the bottom of the shed, waiting for the gremlin to emerge. Every so often I'd see its nose, maybe the glint of an eye. The second day, I brought food. "It's okay, creature," I told it as I set a piece of cheese and ham on the nearby pavement, stepped back a few paces and took a seat. The gremlin didn't listen, though I saw it spot the food. When I came back out after class, the food was gone. The third day, I returned on my lunch break and put out a piece of bacon. I'd returned to my usual hobby of watching the cars pass, and though watching the minimap in League of Legends had trained my peripherals, even my eyes weren't quick enough to spot it. The noise of shuffling leaves hit my ears, and the bacon was gone. Some of my classmates had noticed my peculiar behavior during lunch. I was not as stealthy as the gremlin, and I didn't flee at large noises. Not to mention, I was a few times bigger. I was much easier to find sitting in a strange spot. "What are you doing sitting out by the shed?" one asked me. "I'm hunting a gremlin," I told them. "It might be a cat, but it looks like a gremlin." They laughed. "Is that what you're going to name it? Gremlin?" I paused and thought. "No. I'll name it Jettison." I had decided the name right then, and stuck to it. The night before, I was playing a game, Faster Than Light. During one of the events, the word Jettison appeared, and it confused me, so I looked up the definition. A verb, to throw or drop something from an aircraft or ship. I invented a story for that gremlin Jettison, that they weren't a cat, but a creature from far away, who had been sent from their ship for one reason or another. Perhaps they'd walked the science fiction equivalent of the plank, or been set out on a Superman-esque destiny from a far-off land. These stories made sitting out by the shed much more interesting. My mother knew of a capturer, a real-life Pokemon trainer of sorts, who agreed to apprehend the gremlin so long as we adopted it. I hastily agreed, convinced my mother, and all the other members of our household would certainly be easier to convince once the gremlin was within our walls. It was the 4th evening after I'd spotted the gremlin, and it was in a cage, headed home with us. How it had hissed as the Pokeball teetered left, right, left, click. And it meowed so very loudly as we drove along, like it was shouting, but I didn't understand gremlin. We took it to the vet, and I found out the gremlin Jettison was a she. In the garage, we set up her cage, a playpen, and a bunch of toys to get her acclimated. I found out quickly that she didn't like the toys that crunched or crinkled like plastic, but she loved tormenting bugs that meandered into her pen. I used to pet her with a single finger on her forehead. She was the first cat I'd ever been so near, and when she leaned up and nipped at my finger, it scared me so badly that I locked the cage and went inside. But eventually, I got used to it, and she would convince me to open her cage and even wander away from me. I hadn't the heart to stop her, which meant waiting hours for her to return to her cage on her own, or crawling after her through the disorganized rubble of the garage. Jettison was small, so small that she must have been a baby, we thought. But after a few visits to the vet, we discovered that she was a bit older, almost a year. All her adult teeth had grown in already. Her stomach was swollen up with parasites, so we had to give the alien earth medicine. She didn't like it, but I made sure she took every one. Jettison couldn't speak English, and I don't know any other languages to try out. A visitor tested Spanish, but that was no good either, and a few words of Japanese didn't prick her ears. This was a problem because when I looked up guides on understanding the language of cats, almost all of them told me to watch the tail, and Jettison, well, her tail didn't move. She'd sustained an injury some time before I met her, and her tail was paralyzed. Because the cat's tail is part of its spine, this proved unfortunate for the longevity of her health, but she didn't seem to notice. Whenever she jumped off of things, her limp tail would thud against the floor or wall or chair, whatever she was on, and she never cared. Soon after I adopted her and let her into the rest of the home, Jettison's scraggly gremlin coat became unbelievably soft, evidence that her indoor life was boding well for her, despite her alien origin. Though I couldn't say the same, having been the greatest advocate for her, both my finding and my aggressive convincings, I had neglected an important factor. I was allergic to cats. It was a difficult hurdle, especially when my sneezes frightened poor Jettison, but I learned to endure it, and I got very used to scratching my nose without my hands by violently scrunching my face. After all, I couldn't keep rubbing my nose while I was hunting monsters. Back then, my palico's name was Lanky, a fictional palico who had been with me since the start. Lanky was my favorite, the strongest palico, and the one I played when I used the secret 15th weapon of Generations, the Prowler. But in Monster Hunter Rise, I named my main palico Jettison. She was sitting next to me after all, so she ought to be playing with me. The many hours I played those games with her, as she curled up next to me or on my lap. Sweet Jettison, my spaceship angel. She was my most loyal ally, you know that? I let Jettison into my room and set up a little nest for her beneath my headboard in a hidden nook. She took to it well and slept right above my head each night. She learned the most effective way to scratch and rattle my door and make the most obnoxious noise that would get my attention as quick as possible before racing across my room and diving into the nook. I'd reach inside to pet her, and when she wanted to play, she'd dig her claws into me and bite hard. But no attack was more deadly than her jackhammer kicks. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 kicks. In a matter of seconds, my hands were battle-scarred. I learned to wrap up my sleeves around my hand, but she took that as a challenge and always surpassed it. All my jackets, especially my favorite, became torn at the ends of the sleeves. but she didn't really know how to play Jettison, so when we adopted a kitten some years later, she didn't like them at all. She only liked playing with me, and playing with me was rather painful, but I didn't mind. I wasn't using my hands for anything apart from gaming or writing notes, and a few scratches did never hold me back. The kitten learned, most of the time, not to mess with Jettison, and Jettison's batterings never injured the kitten. At a certain point, she had established her boundaries, and the two coexisted quite well. Jettison loved to sit on the couch next to me while I was playing Monster Hunter World. I have a memory of her, once, when I was farming the Guiding Lands. I had a bowl of blackberries, full of blackberries, probably 25 or 30 of them. I left it on the back of the couch and stood up to answer the door. Not 2 minutes later, I returned to the couch to find the bowl completely empty. Jettison sitting where she had been, licking her lips. I was in disbelief. I would have sooner believed the blackberries had spilled or disappeared than Jettison had eaten them, but sure enough, without a blackberry in sight, she had gobbled up every single one. Proof that she was a trained gremlin, and something not from this planet. Though her injury to her tail didn't make things simple, and after only 6 years with her, the mothership called. It was so sudden, so unexpected, I hadn't even gotten to say goodbye. But Jettison was a being of principle. When her mission was complete, Jettison returned to the land she came from. Her gremlin cohorts surely bowed upon her arrival, and she revealed to them the many secrets she had learned, maybe in Mandarin or one of the languages I hadn't tested. She no longer had use for her earthly shell, so I put it away, in a safe place beneath the earth. A great wound I had in the absence of my Jettison. I'd lost her so near Christmas that the pain of the wound nearly inhibited me from any celebrations. I cherished the scratches I still had upon my hands. For a time, I didn't even pick up my controller. I sat wondering if, during my time with her, had she been my Jettison, or I her pokit. But when I returned to Monster Hunter Rise, when my hunter, Tangerine, lit up on the screen, I saw, next to her, I saw a little gremlin. Standing proud with a broken tail was my most loyal ally. I went in to fight a fearsome monster, and she mounted the magnificent Kittenator, firing a massive shot into its side and knocking it over for me. Some hunts, I felt like she did most of the work herself. Palicos were really strong in Rise, and it was kind of hard for Palamutes to compete, honestly. So when Wilds came out, I made sure to build her again, Jettison, and make sure to get every detail I could right. Though she wears a little puffball armor, so it's kind of hard to see. Sometimes people have asked me why I play alone. After all, Monster Hunter and most games are more fun with friends. But the truth is, I don't feel very alone. Even if it's the middle of the night and I'm hunting Jin Dahad for the 50th time, because I'm hunting with Jettison. I like to imagine that somewhere, when I boot up the game, she does too, on whichever planet her mothership is currently orbiting, and she joins my party. Every Vigor Wasp revive, every Pure Wasp heal, every wrath from above is an echo of my friend, and though she may be far, we cannot truly ever be apart. But sometime after, when I was playing Monster Hunter Now, soon after its release, I was walking through the park as the sun set, and I heard a crying baby. I stopped where I was, tapping the monster nearest to my location to start a battle with it. I stepped off the path and knelt down as the Tobi Kadachi appeared on my screen, and so too did a little kitten approach me from the woods, crying loudly over and over. "What is it, little baby?" I asked, quickly closed my phone and put it away. "Are you the Tobi Kadachi I just found in the woods?" The kitten began to purr and rubbed against my knee. It was kneading the rocks beneath itself. This time, when it nipped at my finger, I didn't get scared and shut the cage. With my phone as my kinship stone, I had tamed the beast, that Tobi Kadachi, so that is what I named him, Tobi. A beast who had not yet known his own birth when Jettison walked the world with me, but a companion calling out with an SOS flare nevertheless. To extend a paw, that we may face hardship, that we may faint, yet the hunt goes on. you can believe it, Alma, the photobomb master, was back at it again when I pulled off that cool finisher by pulling the rocks down on GF Anja. She was not having it. After finishing up my 3 Guardian Fulgur Anjanaths and 2 Grathalos, I headed back to the Bounty Cat with Jettison to turn in our quests and reap the bounty goodies. See that, Jetty? Armor sphere's pretty good, huh? Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed my story. If you have a similar story of your own, I'd love to hear about it. I know this game has been an opportunity for people to reconnect with their old allies and such, much like my bond with Jettison. Until next time, fellow hunters, good luck, good night, and goodbye.